morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Well, we thought we'd just take a step back and look at our crystal ball a little bit to see what kind of cars might be valuable in 10 years. Now, we sort of joked about the 401k, right? What Mr. Shank said before, attempts to predict the future rarely succeed. At Hagerty, we have a team of people that analyze sale prices of classic cars at auction, private sales. We use data how many quotes people ask for just to try and get an idea of what the interest is in some of the cars. So we've used that data to try and predict the future, but I want to do a big fat disclaimer here and say, I'm not telling you to put all your retirement savings in these cars. We all clear with that? Then let's move forward. So maybe first I will, let's discuss a little bit about the overall market. So these are one of the easiest ways that we have to determine the size of the classic car market is through auctions, because it's very public as a sale data. And it's been a gradual but very consistent rise in the number of cars, the value of the cars sold at auctions year over year out. So last year we saw the first kind of little bit of softening, but it's kind of leveling off. But if you look at a 10-year projection, these numbers are continuing to go up. Now, if you look at what those sales are, what I find really interesting is only 1% of the cars sold are in what you call those high expensive cars, but they represent 35% of the dollar value. So those big blue chip cars continue to be really noisy. It's kind of like the Picasso of the art world. So this is the what we use as an index. This is the blue chip index. Just like the stock market index, we have a collection of cars that are blue chip cars, meaning we think they're very highly collectible, and we track their prices to try to get an index of their performance over time. And as it's leveling off now after the dip in 2008, but if you look 10 years down the road, it's still going to continue to grow and may even outperform the stock market. So this is a car that we think is a good one to have in your stable today if you want to look at future value 10 years from now. This is the FD RX-7. This is a really great driver's car. The next generation, as they're getting more disposable income and as they're starting to buy the classic cars, they're looking at the stuff that they loved. And one of the things they loved are 90s and 2000s Japanese cars. And this one it's fantastic to drive. It's really fun, very analog, it's very unique. They can be a little troublesome to live with, but very reasonable to buy today and will likely increase over time. Grand Wagoneer. Probably many of you in the room have owned one of these at one time. Not the most stellar automobile, but they say something. They make a huge statement. It's a lot of fun for not a lot of money. They're culturally very significant because you've seen them in movies over and over again. And this next generation of collectors is much more interested in SUVs because that's what they grew up with. And again, this is a reasonable car that you could own, enjoy today, and get your money out of it in 10 years. Now, Mustangs hold a special place in the American car culture. So if you look at fastbacks, you look at first generation Mustangs, and they kind of break a lot of rules because there's a lot of them out there, but there's just a lot of interest in them. And depending on the model, some will outperform others, you know, like Shelbys and things like that. But Mustang is just one of those culturally American cars where we think there'll always be value in. So if you wanted kind of a fun muscle car, the Mustang's really hard to beat. This is the BMW M3. It's the first one they made in the late 80s. It was on the E30 chassis. This was a really fascinating car. They built it to race, so it had its own unique body. It had a very high-strung four-cylinder engine out of the BMW Motorsports group, and it's among car aficionados, it has legendary status. Now these have seen a sharp rise in value, but we still think there's a lot of room to grow because they are so special, they were so successful, and a lot of them got cut up over the years and just simply don't survive. And they're really fun too, by the way. So maybe you know of a Lamborghini Countach, one of the most highly recognizable exotic supercars that was ever built in the 80s. And that car has seen dramatic rise in value. So it's natural to believe that the next car after the Countach, which was a Diablo, is going to do the same thing. These are still V12. They came with stick shifts, and they're actually quite reasonable to use and drive and enjoy, much more so than a Countach. And where they're trading now is kind of like at Testarossa prices, the low hundreds, but we think down the road there's a lot of room for these, and they sound fantastic, believe me on this one. E-types. Okay, this is a car that I think we could reasonably call as one of the most beautiful cars ever made, right? So it's a 60s car, so in today's it's a little harder to use because the gearing's not right, it's a little bit windy and drafty, and it feels maybe not so safe. However, it ticks all these buttons that we think enthusiasts are gonna really still value in 10 years. It's gorgeous, right? It's got a lot of brand value in Jaguar. It's a roadster. Oh, and it's gorgeous. So if I could afford one, I would definitely have a Jaguar E-Type in my garage. And just so you know, they're up 66% over the past 10 years. Now imagine if you had bought one back then. So this is an interesting car. This is the brand new Porsche 911R. It's a limited edition. You had to have purchased a 918 supercar to have the privilege of spending almost $200,000 for the 911R. This is about as analog a sports car as you can get today. It's still a manual transmission, no turbos, 500 horsepower. This is, to many, is the pinnacle of the Porsche 911. So they sold for about 200. Now they're already trading for around 500. And if you look down at what Porsches mean to enthusiasts, is it has that sort of that brand value, which means a lot to collectors going forward. It's a very limited edition model. It's very driver oriented. So you have to tick all those boxes to make something truly collectible. And this one does them all. So the DB5, older car, early 60s, but it just crosses every generation, right? Of course, the James Bond movies really help. It also helps that these cars are a stunning design. They're very usable to drive. The engines sound raspy and roary, but they're smooth, and they got a lot of character and a lot of charisma, and they're obviously very expensive now. But if you look at some of the things that the Aston Martin does so well, in 10 years, you're not going to be able to buy anymore. And that is that sense of style. Nothing beats this. So, another good one. So these Ferraris that were built, all these special edition ones, you really can't go wrong with them, right? There's always going to be consistent desire, consistent market for these cars, because they're Ferraris number one, they're crazy special, and they deliver an experience like nothing else on the road. And you know, the F40 was that first turbocharged Ferrari. It was really frenetic, it was crazy fast, it was very difficult to drive, but also very stunning, very beautiful, very fast, and very special. So these cars that just came out, these are what they call the hypercars. These ushered in an entire new segment into the automotive market. You had the Ferrari LaFerrari, the McLaren P1, and the Porsche 918. Now here's what was significant about these cars. They all had some sort of electric hybrid powertrain where they had an electric assist, the gasoline engine. It was the first time that sort of technology trickled into this slice of the market. And what was really fascinating about it was all three manufacturers used that technology in slightly different ways, but they all used it to elevate the performance to levels most of us thought we would never see. The combined horsepower is close to 1,000 when you combine the electric and the gas motors. And with other technology, tires, chassis, steering, all that things, the cars are actually drivable. And you can use them, you can use all that performance. Very limited edition. That was an era where all three supercar manufacturers came out with a similar car at the same time, which almost never happens. So I think we're going to look back at this time in the 2010s and think what was in the water. And so consequently, those are cars that'll be very cherished down the road. And then if you want to talk about a blue chip car, it's a Ferrari 250 GT California. Now, some might say, hey, look, the thing's already worth 15 million bucks. How much room is there? But there's room, right? They didn't build a lot of these Ferraris, especially the short wheelbase ones. There was less than 50. And they tick every button in the enthusiast market, right? Ferrari, V12, convertible, red. Awesome. I wish I could own one. So again, please use this information with caution. We always advise people to buy what you enjoy. I mean, really, this is about fun. This is about enjoying the hobby. This is about enjoying automobiles. And I wanted to thank you for your attention, and I'll turn it back over to you, Mark.